I am so excited that I am going to be interviewing Dave Caldwell, a friend of mine that I met through the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus when I was singing with the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir. So he will be joining me shortly and we will be discussing joy, authentic and wholehearted joy. I'm Misha Safran, founder of this podcast, Authentic and Wholehearted Joy, passing joy around the world. Okay, so I am interviewing Dave Caldwell, as I recently introduced us as part of the video. And I'm going to just give you all a little synopsis of this amazing individual. So Dave Caldwell, hello Dave, by the way.
Hi, thank you. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to be here.
I'm thrilled. This is so cool. I just been having so much fun doing this. So Dave Caldwell is a San Francisco-based human, if you couldn't tell, with a love for the arts, self-transformation, singing, having fun with friends, tennis, sobriety, nutrition, and fitness challenges. Dave has spent the last 6 years of his life devoted to the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, where he's learned many important lessons about being an adult and good friend in the context of one of the most loving and supportive organizations on earth. And I know this because that's how I met Dave. I don't know if anybody can see my shirt, but I was in the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir, and Dave is with the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, and we traveled to the South for 9 days in 6 huge buses and sang across 5 states. And it was absolutely amazing, singing Love Can Build a Bridge. That was pretty incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely life-changing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I came out after that gig. I don't know if you knew that.
No way. What? Oh my God, I'm so glad that you're saving these surprises. How many more surprises are we going to get?
That's so funny, sweetie, because I put it on our Lavender Pen Tour Facebook page, and I don't know
Wow.
how many of you all saw it, but I was like, you guys were, so I had been walking over, I'll save it. No, I can't save it. I'll tell you now. So as we're walking over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but I don't like to call it that, the Selma
Oh
Bridge,
my gosh.
right? We've got our flags up in the air and we're walking, and at one point I called my dad with FaceTime because he was there in the 60s. And I said, look
Hmm.
familiar, Pops? And he's like, yeah. And as we hung up, I'm walking around and I'm a little bit like spaced and dazed. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not just an ally. Like I really had this, like, I'm getting goosebumps now. I was like, I'm not just an ally. And it was really like this incredibly powerful experience for me. And when we got home, I actually had to take a break from the gospel choir because I was ill. I don't know if you remember, I had fibromyalgia. I still have it, but I had to miss it the Wednesday night in Tennessee. And
Oh.
anyway, so I went to Kaiser to get some blood results, and I went to the gift shop because, you know, what do you do when you're down? You go buy things, right? And I ended up finding this ring, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Can you see the rainbow
Is
colors?
it rainbow jewels?
Yeah, and it was only
Little
$20.
crystals?
So I bought, and she put it on my finger, and I'm like, it fits. And so I bought it, and I walked out, and I said, I do. You're the first woman I'm going to date.
Aw, oh my God, I love that.
I made a
That's
commitment to myself.
amazing.
So
I
yeah,
love that.
there's
Oh,
your
wow, that's
surprise. So
amazing.
when we were talking earlier, when we were not recording, about the fact that I'm introducing a lot of people from the
I
lesbian
am so
queer
glad
community.
that you had that as a surprise. That's like the best way to like start off a show. Like I'm already like riveted and shook and okay, you just raised the stakes and
Okay,
doubled
let's
down.
give
I
each
love
other
it.
a hug. Ready? Give each other a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hug.
That's so great.
All
Okay,
right, let me
so
finish your
okay,
introduction.
I'll let you finish. I'll let you
Okay.
finish. Sorry.
So Dave also sings with the chorus a cappella group, the Homphonics. Is that how you pronounce it? Homphonics?
Homophonics.
Oh, you're missing an O. Okay,
Homophonics.
homophone. That's what I thought it was.
Oh no, did I do a
That's
typo?
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we're not supposed to be perfect here, except he says where he gets to live his pitch perfect fantasy. For
Mm-hmm.
work, Dave recently started a new job at YouTube on the creator and artist development team, where he hopes to use his skills in media to help YouTube artists thrive and succeed. Oh, I hope to be one of those, Dave. You'll have to help me with that. He has a
Yeah, someday.
beautiful boyfriend, of course, of 6 months named Mark. Dave is learning how to be more at peace amid the storm of his late 20s and is failing and succeeding and growing and messing it all up and putting it back together again and learning how to love it all at once. Wow, what a great bio. I love it.
I thought I would give you my full like self-helpy, like having fun with it
It's
um
beautiful. It's exactly what I
bio.
expected. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we're going to dive in. I'm going to ask the first question.
Okay.
And I didn't, everybody that's listening, everybody that's watching, I did not give Dave the questions ahead of time. I figured if he could handle Wheel of Fortune, he could handle
Oh, that's the other
That's the
Dave.
other
That's
Dave.
Dave
Oh,
Andrade.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
That's all right. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I say the word joy, what does that evoke in you?
Well, the first thing, I do feel like I kind of had an advantage because I know the theme of your podcast and your Facebook group, so I had an idea that this might come up. So, so sorry that I'm cheating a little bit here right off the
You're allowed
bat,
to
but
cheat.
I actually did do a lot of thinking about this, and like actually like my experience of thinking about like unbridled and like wholehearted joy actually was kind of I was really, I had to dig deep a little bit because I think especially like during these times and a lot of the times, I oftentimes am like prone to anxiety and rumination. And I think it's like, it's easy for us like on the outside to talk about like how joyful we are or to, you know, like present it like a really the happiest kind of like image of ourselves as
Right.
much as possible. But what this kind of like made me realize was in thinking about unbridled joy, the main thing that like comes to mind is that it's not something you do by yourself. I think it's something that's really rooted in friendships and joyful moments with friends. So the biggest example I can say is my best friend Mitch. You know Mitch
Yeah,
Galley, the
I know.
assistant artistic director
Yes,
of the chorus.
yes.
He just turned 30 yesterday,
Oh, I think I
and
sent him well, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It doesn't matter.
yeah, and so what Mitch, I mean, Mitch has a huge heart, and what he had been doing for his best friends was he would reach out to the friends and family of his best friends, and he would put together these compilation videos of all of his friends' loved ones, wishing a happy birthday and saying I love you because we obviously can't be together right now. And
Right.
these videos were just like
Wow.
so moving and inspiring, and he put so much work into editing them, that when I realized his birthday was in a couple weeks and I didn't really have a gift fully like solidified for him, I thought to myself, like, I have to just like try to make a movie. Like I've never made a movie before. Anyway, long story short, I put a whole lot of time and energy into iMovie and learning it and making a video for Mitch. And honestly, it was, I put a lot of hours into it. And at a lot of points it was frustrating, but to see his face when a video of his mom and dad comes up on the screen,
Oh,
and for a moment in time he can just hear and see how much they love him, and basically get this kind of like love letter from everyone in his life, and to see like how moved he was and how much that meant to him, um, that was like pure joy for me.
tell me I was going to need a tissue box.
I know, I'm getting choked up too, but
That's so sweet. Oh man.
yeah, and so I think for me, like, I think it's hard to have complete unbridled joy or joy by yourself. I think like joy comes from your friendships and being silly in those friendships and caring about other people and taking care of them and making them feel loved and being silly, and being yourself. So when you said like what's the first thing that makes you think of joy, I thought like that moment where all of my stuff just fades into the background and I can just be with someone who's having a profound like experience in love that I help facilitate. Like that to me is joy. So
Beautiful.
yeah, that's the first thing. I also do tend to ramble, so
So I just cut you off like
yeah, just to be like the wrap it up, give me the wrap it up sign.
no, it's beautiful. And I mean, the whole idea of these podcasts is really to let it flow. I mean, I have certain questions that I ask just to kind of make sure there's something to talk about, but when it flows like this, it's fine. I want my viewers and I want whoever's listening to really just have something to think about, and maybe they'll agree with what they're hearing. Maybe they'll disagree. Maybe they'll have some ideas that pop in their heads about something. And it's just for being thought provoking and on the topic, because one of the things I do with this is I don't want people to feel like they have to be feeling joy all the time. The idea of having a talk show on joy isn't to say that the other feelings aren't valid or that we're negating or dismissing the other feelings, but it's really to identify that we can have a whole well-rounded amount of emotions and feelings at any given time. And one of them is joy. And so how do we get that? Where does it come from? Do we create it? Do we give it? Does it come to us? Do we receive it well? Do we not receive it well? So, and then there's our organic joy, like it just kind of like pops up. And then sometimes we have to really work for joy. So it's just really the idea is to talk about it as comfortably as it comes. It doesn't have to be super formal. So
yeah,
but with
and I
that,
also
I'll
think
go to my next question. I'm just kidding. I was just kidding. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, no, just one thing I was gonna add is I think I started by talking about some of the, I guess, perhaps like more painful emotions like anxiety, rumination, like those things. Because I think that like for me, I'm constantly working on myself, and sometimes I feel like sometimes when I talk about like my own journey and like the things that I've improved upon, like working on going from, obese to a healthy weight, going from, substance abuse issues to sobriety. And, I have all these like awesome things to talk about, but I also think it's important to know that like for anyone who's talking about joy and their own relationship with joy, I also think it's important to say like we all struggle with both, and I don't think that anyone just is walking around purely joyful all the time. And that's why I just wanted to root that in like, hey, this doesn't happen all the time, but for me it happens when I have those incredible moments with friends. So I guess that's why I started off with in a roundabout way, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's really, really important. So I'm super glad that you did. I feel like the same happens for me. I actually wrote a song last fall. So I've been doing a lot of writing, and I've been learning guitar and going out and doing open mics. But the song that I wrote was "There Ain't No Bad Day for Me." And the reason I did that is for the longest time, I've had the philosophy I've had many days that were very difficult with a lot of things that I won't go into here, trauma related and all that. And yet if there was one thing in the day that made me smile, or that somebody was giving or generous or loving, I decided I can't define the whole day as bad. So when somebody walks down the street and said, "How you doing?" I'm not going to say I'm having a bad day, because that sets me up for failure in the sense of living life. And so when I focus on even that tiniest glimmer, then I know that the next day I can do that. I can do the next day. So at some point, actually, maybe I'll send you the song later, but it's been really helpful to me. And I know that my kids love that philosophy. Like, I want to just have a bad day, Mom, but at the same time, they realize, being in gratitude and identifying, for me, joy is when we can really identify that our life is, there are good things happening in our life. So let me ask you, when you were growing up, did you feel connected to joy at all? Do you have any memories of growing up and feeling that being nurtured in your life?
Um, Yeah, actually, I think the first thing that kind of comes to mind would be like I think like the very first love I had, like of all great loves in my life, was actually tennis. Like I just really there was something about um tennis that really clicked with me when I was a little kid, and I would just like be out on the court for just hours and hours and hours. And I was like a really easy kid, because during the summer my parents could just like drop me off by some tennis courts with like a wood some tennis courts have like a wood wall that you can just like practice off of, like hit the ball off of.
Yeah.
And I would just do that for like hours at a time. Like my parents would drop me off at like the tennis courts at 10 in the morning, and they'd come back at like 3, and I'd be just like hanging out, like happy as a clam. And I just loved it. Like I loved running around the court. I loved playing it. And so like that always has been a big a big source of joy in my life. And I think, I think a lot of times like traditional sport doesn't have the same kind of like it doesn't really get like the same spiritual credit as like a yoga does. But like I think there's something about tennis that is like a flow state. And I think it like really did connect me with like my body and like what I could do when I was a little kid. And so I think like having that mind body connection and like having a space where I could like be in flow and like, be in a relationship with myself on the court, I think like, that I just loved it as a kid.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I played basketball and tennis, and most oftentimes I actually enjoyed it when I was just doing it on my own. But it's interesting because there were times where I really needed to be around people to have that joy, and then times where I could experience that all by myself. What do you think for yourself? Like even now as an adult, like do you find that you experience joy more authentically and wholeheartedly when you're with people or when you're alone, or do you have an even balance of the two?
Um, I think for me, like I think, and this honestly, like I'm really more realizing it like this week, because like this isn't something that like I've thought about a lot, but I really like when I think about like when I am the most happy, like, and I'm the most grateful, and like usually it's like when I'm being silly and playful with my friends. And I think that like there's like some sort of something that got into my head at some point where I thought that like getting older, like becoming an adult meant like not being playful anymore. And like, my best friends and I, like we're like so silly. Like the way that we speak to each other when we're like all in a car together, it's like three turkeys just like gobbling and like squawking, and it makes no sense. And like any rational person like listening to us talk to each other would probably not know what was happening,
I
and
need
be
to
maybe
join you
even
guys.
worried about us.
Yeah,
But like
my kind of fun.
so, and it's like those moments where like I think being playful is so I don't know, I think being playful and because I think the reason why I don't have more joy just on my own is because I think I take everything so damn seriously. Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm always like, okay, like, I wake up in the morning, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, I gotta like get my coffee, I gotta like open my laptop, I gotta like what am I gonna do to work out today, and how bad is it gonna hurt, and like, oh, am I gonna meditate and journal, am I gonna like, what am I gonna forget to do today?
So do you feel
So
like
I
your
think,
friends kind of give you permission to be playful and
yeah, and I get out of my own head.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. So if you were, I mean, and this, God forbid this happen. I mean, I know that we're, stay at home right now and there's not a lot of interactions, but if you could not have access to your friends for a whole week by phone, by Zoom, by anything, what's the first thing you think you could do to help create that notion of playfulness and joy for you?
mm.
I've
That's
actually
a
never
great
asked this,
question.
Anna. I've never asked it yet.
I feel like so spoiled being like asked questions. Like I love, like I love, like this is so fun for me. Um
I'm really glad.
y- well, I'm a talker, so but yeah, I think like maybe being, I think definitely remembering that like I don't have to have an audience in order to sing and live my deepest inner whatever diva fantasies I have singing, and maybe even just like singing some like silly stuff, like I love, like in a lot of cases, like I love some like silly pop music. Like sometimes it's like a guilty pleasure where um it just makes me feel like a 16-year-old girl like driving a convertible. Like that's the feeling I get when I listen to some songs, and like I don't know, that's just
You're gonna have to
it's a
teach
great feeling. So I think maybe like letting myself sing.
me.
um I think maybe I would sing more if I wasn't concerned about my relationships with my roommates. But given
You have a beautiful voice. What do you mean?
even the most beautiful of voices can get old really quickly in
Oh, okay.
a small 3-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
So
All right. All right.
yeah. So I try and respect my roommates' thresholds. Yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds to me though, like just hearing you bring that up around singing, like being part of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus and having this part in the homophonics, like this is a joy of yours, right?
Hmm.
Singing is a
Oh
joy.
yeah. Yeah. It's a
Can you say
big
more about
joy.
your experience with them and what that does for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I think of the chorus as like like the chorus has been almost like this like nest. Like if I were some sort of like this is a weird analogy, but like if I was some sort of like forest creature and I was like wandering around and like found a very large like nest in another tree with like a bunch of other forest creatures like pretty similar to me, and it felt like comfortable and it felt like home. Like that's kind of like I feel like I arrived to San Francisco and I had no idea like what I was doing. And I have had like a lot of emotional dysregulation and being kind of a, I don't know, like I've been like a party animal, and a very emotional person. So like for me sometimes like I can be a lot to handle in certain friendships because I'm so emotional and because I was so wild for so many years. So anyway, there's a point
I
to
just
this,
want
but
you to know,
and the point being,
I just want you to know that we have a lot of similarities. So
oh yeah.
everything you're saying is really resonating. So go ahead. I'm
Oh,
listening
that's
to you.
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And so what I didn't realize like going into the chorus and like this other like this new kind of like nesting area of like that was safe, like more safe. um I think I kind of at first I took it for granted a little bit. Like I showed up, I was like, I'm 23, like I can, I can belt and riff and I can sing musical theater, and like I'm gonna, I'm gonna like show these guys that like I'm cool, and like I and all this stuff. um but I had always like but I feel like I was very like kind of self-centered and like thinking about like what the chorus could do for me and like what I would get out of the chorus. Um and given the things that I was insecure about and struggling with, and being very honestly uh not doing well financially, not doing well spiritually, not doing any of that well, it was a place where I could show it was the place where I showed my best self to a community and my worst self to a community, because I would get up on stage and I would sing solos as beautifully as I could, and I took it super seriously, and I knew all my music, and like if you were standing next to me, it was like I made damn sure that like every single thing I sang, background or front, was like as good as I could make it. So it was like I was a really strong contributor, like artistically, but then at the same time, I was like, the same guy who's like a strong contributor artistically. I was also, like blacking out at parties and probably making people uncomfortable, and well, no, definitely making people
Definitely
uncomfortable.
making people, yeah.
And making
Good awareness.
mistake after yeah, making mistake after mistake,
Yeah.
and like really losing my way. And then when I kind of drifted into my own like long slow process of like what I consider my own kind of like personal recovery, it's like I look back through my like photos and think back to these experiences, and I think like I I never, like no one ever like really gave up on me. No one ever like pushed me away. Like the amount of like forgiveness and like grace that I was shown in the chorus over the years is just, I just feel so lucky, because I don't know how many people in life have a community where they can make all of these immense mistakes and go through all of these struggles and go through the dark night of the soul, and still have like a group of people like holding your hand when you're finding your way out. And
So
I feel grateful. Yeah.
right there is where I immediately get goosebumps and feel joy.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was what you just described, is literally an authentic and wholehearted sentiment of joy. I want to take that in for a moment. Yeah, it's really beautiful to be held like that. Yeah, you
So
really, and
lucky.
I felt that way when I was on tour with you guys. I mean, I literally felt loved and held, and even when I couldn't make it to one of the gigs because I was not feeling well, I mean, the most amazing people came to support, and yeah, it's a beautiful community. You are all very lucky, and I miss you so
Mm-hmm.
much, all of you. I wish
Yeah, I wish we could do
with other
another
places.
collaboration or something like that. But
Well, I'm
I
not in
think,
the
yeah.
gospel choir anymore. I had to take a break, but
Uh-huh.
I think it's just so wonderful that all the different walks of life. I mean, the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir is definitely a very mixed group of people with lesbian, queer, and different racial and different um, socioeconomic and different
Mm-hmm.
religions, and the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, even, I mean, 300 voices of magnitude of diversity as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
no wonder that our two communities came together so beautifully, and
Mm-hmm.
that was just a lot
Yeah.
of joy. So one
Yeah, and
last
I
question.
also,
No,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
so, no, that's okay. So do you find that you now, in the way your life is today, because I heard you say, it was more about like what I got out of this or what they were giving to me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about your ability to, I mean, you just described that amazing gift that you did for Mitch, like your ability to give joy to others. Like, what does that
Mm-hmm.
look like? You talked about the gift for Mitch. Where else does that come from? Or how else do you notice that you're about to create joy for someone, or is it spontaneous?
Mm-hmm. Um, I think that I've been a lot more, well, I guess like in the context of the chorus, I really try to encourage other singers when they put themselves out there and they, like audition for a solo or they sing a solo for the first time.
Mm.
Um, and, I and not always, like sometimes I miss the mark, but a lot of times when someone auditions or someone, it's obvious that like something meant something to them, I always try to tell them good job. And I always try to make them know like how wonderful they are. So like,
Yeah.
you know so I try to really give people like heartfelt compliments, um because it's scary, like, and especially like for me, like I've been studying voice and in music for a long time. Well, I grew up studying music, so for me I've always been confident in music. I've always been confident in singing, but there are guys in the chorus who only sang in the shower before coming to the chorus. And for guys like that to like go out there and put themselves on a limb, I mean, that's huge, So I try to honor that, like that journey of vulnerability, and I try to encourage that way. And I also am very silly, and I in the later
I
years in the
didn't know that about
chorus,
you at all.
well, in the beginning of my, like in the first maybe like 2 or 3 years, I was always trying to sing like the most serious like ballad, like, I would be like, I want the most dramatic, ballady song. And then as time has gone on, I think what I've tried to do is stretch into more of things that I can make funny, so that when I do sing solos or do have some larger role in a concert, I'm always trying to make it funny. so that people can laugh. And I make a lot of fun of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to show that like I've grown into more than just someone who wants to sing power ballads. I really want to entertain and make people laugh too.
It feels
So
good, doesn't it?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like making people laugh too. How do you feel about me sharing a quick clip of that video I asked you about? Is that
Oh, sure. Go
okay?
for it.
So
I
I'm
haven't
gonna
watched it
see
in
if I
so
can,
long.
yeah, I'm gonna share my screen here, and I think it'll work on the recording, but we're gonna. Can you hear it okay?
Where silence
Yeah.
thunders and
So this is
angels
Dave Caldwell,
sing.
everybody.
Imagination and amazing grace bring us closer to our home in space. The stars are gathered and illuminate to lead us safely to heaven's gate, and we look behind us in the wonder of the earth, only to remind us where God gave us birth, where peace remains, where silence thunders and angels sing. Imagination and amazing grace bring us closer to a home in space. Shooting star.
Wow, I haven't listened to that in a while.
That was
Ah,
great, huh? Where were you guys performing that? You know where that was?
I think that was at I think that was actually at the Curran.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that was the same concert that actually Ryan passed away.
Yeah,
So that
that was
was
a dedication. You had dedicated this one to him.
um
It says
uh
on my screen. Yeah,
oh
dedicated to
yeah.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, and I know you guys had mentioned him on the tour before we went on the tour. That this, in fact, that the tour was in part for Ryan. Is that right?
I'm not really sure, but I mean, like he was, part, and he was and still is like a part of the fabric of like the chorus's identity, and he's part of the fabric of our community and
Yeah.
will forever be. And so like, yeah, he was definitely there with us. Um, yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you so very much for taking time to talk to me about joy and also just being really open and honest around what else comes up and how we it's kind of like how do we modulate between the self-loathing or the depression or the other feelings that come through and the tragic developments that are experiencing in our world and
Hmm.
also find the laughter and the silliness and the joy. So
Hmm.
I appreciate you bringing light on all of that. It's not just one emotion that we can, that we experience as we live life. So.
Hmm. Yeah. And this was great. Like, I feel like I learned a lot just thinking about these things and thinking the past couple days of, what my relationship with joy is. And so I feel really happy that you had me on here, and I can't wait to listen to more episodes of yours. And
Thank you. Definitely
yeah,
just
this was
starting out,
awesome.
but thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping to. I think by August, I think I'll have maybe 15 or 20 episodes. But I'm moving slowly because I'm also building my business and really excited about supporting. Mostly I work with the lesbian and queer community, women identified, but I'm going to be having workshops to help with creating, embracing, and maintaining joy. And the biggest piece for folks is how to maintain it. We can create lots of
Hmm.
different things, but how do we maintain the healthy side of our existence?
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I'm just grateful to have all of you people who say yes to me. It feels really, really good. Is there anything you want to say to people listening or watching before we stop the recording?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say, and especially in relationship to joy, is like the more and more that I try to cultivate joy in my life, the more and more it is looking like the formula requires a little bit more of self-acceptance in the mix, because I think I've been able to accomplish a lot through kind of like riding hard, but there's only so far that like pushing yourself gets you. And I
Right.
think in order to have unbridled joy, there has to be somewhat of a release of letting yourself just be yourself and accepting where you are right now, in order to fully experience that joy. So I would just say add an extra tablespoon of self-acceptance in your joy formula.
Oh, I love that. I might have to quote you on that.
It's all yours.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to just say goodbye to our listeners and our viewers. Thank you for joining us again. It was Misha Safran with Authentic and Wholehearted Joy, interviewing Dave Caldwell from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, also working for YouTube, and just a phenomenal individual living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you so much.
And I'm clicking stop here and stop.